but a hail of arrows from the mounted archers drove them back. It was a taste of what was to come. What happened next was like a scene from a western. Thousands of Parthian horse archers began to surround the square, pouring thousands of arrows into the densely packed ranks. They used the composite bow. The composite bow in the right hands is a powerful weapon. It's made of different layered materials, like wood, horn, and sinew. This gives it more elasticity, which means that it can store more energy when pulled back. Its normal range is around 220 yards, but experiments have shown that in expert hands can be fired to around 440 yards. The arrows penetrated everything, punching through armor and shields. Hundreds of Romans fell. Arms were pinned to shields. Feet were pinned to the ground. They even fired backwards over the shoulder as they rode away. This was the Parthian shot.
Hey there YouTube, I'm Yukitsu, this is the Yukitsu Times, welcome to my channel. Welcome back to Rome 2 Total War. We're on to Parthia, our second last faction, yay! So after this, all we have left is Pontus, and I'm having a hell of a time thinking up anything for them. Anyway, starting off with their unit roster, let's go through their generals. They have one of the only types of ranged generals in the game, the other one being the Iceni chariots, which can throw javelins. The noble horse archers are a heavily armored archer unit. They're actually really much better than the Iceni chariot. They're one of the better archer units in the game, and they're mounted, so they're just a fantastic unit all around. They are very expensive, however, and that armor and health might be a little bit superfluous to you simply because they are, in fact, archers. So don't necessarily think that they need that, but since it is your general unit, that extra protection is nice. The fact that you can also have him hidden behind your lines and he'll contribute quite a bit to the battle by firing over your troops from horseback is also a great benefit for a general, so you can safely add to that if you're using a lot of infantry. The other type are the Royal Cataphracts. They're a form of heavy shock cavalry. As you can see, they've got a ton of armor, a ton of health. They're a very powerful unit, and they are able to drive a wedge through a lot of other units, but they are still shock cavalry, which is why their melee defense is so bad. Their melee attack is only average for such an expensive unit. So you still don't want to use these ones in a protracted, long-term fight against other types of cavalry like the Aspis Companion Cavalry or the Praetorian Guard Cavalry. Moving on to melee infantry, we've got the Hillmen, which are basically a peasant levy unit. Do not take these guys really unless you just happen to have 310 left over. They're absolutely trash, and while they can do okay in a flank charge or rear charge against a unit that's already engaged from the front, you're going to have a hard time finding enemy units that are engaged in the front using Parthia as your faction, simply because you usually don't have that big an infantry line. Next up is the Parthian swordsmen. These guys are actually really good. They're a little bit... I think they might be a little bit overcosted for what they can do, but what they can do is quite good. They're a typical sort of legionnaire-style sword unit, very strong. They've got very good stats all around, just very solid for what they are. So these guys you can expect to pull their weight, even if they are fairly costly. Spear infantry, again, is divided into these Eastern Spearmen, which are a trash levy unit. Don't rely on them to get anything done at all. And then, of course, you've got the mercenary hoplites, and they're pretty solid, pretty standard. They aren't, in my opinion, quite as worthwhile as the Parthian swordsmen. I much prefer taking these Parthian swordsmen over the mercenary hoplites. But if you think you need some of these more durable units that can hold the line a little bit better, the mercenary hoplites with their phalanx formation are a pretty good pick. Missile infantry is sort of where Parthia shines, and as you can see, they've got these excellent slingers for a relatively good price. They've got Persian light archers, which have pretty average, pretty typical bow statistics. They've got Eastern javelin men, which have missile damage of 22, which is really high for a javelin type unit. The more expensive mercenary peltasts only have an 18, as do most other peltasts in the game. So if you want to actually cause a lot of damage with javelin men, Eastern javelin men are a very good pick, especially because they have precision shot instead of that rapid shot, so that one volley that they're going to get off can do a lot of damage. Next up, you've got the Parthian foot archers, and these guys actually have, as far as I'm aware, the highest archer missile damage in the game with the 30. They're very, very good at taking apart light infantry units, and they actually have a higher damage value than these elite Persian archers. The elite Persian archers just have more melee statistics. They've got a little bit more defense, but they don't have better armor. So I think that actually the Parthian foot archers are just actually better than the elite Persian archers, even though the elite Persian archers cost more. Now, what the elite Persian archers do have that's supposed to justify their cost is the whistling shot. I happen to think whistling shot is more detrimental than anything, so I tend not to take it. And of course, they've also got these mercenary peltas, which are very standard for peltas. They've got the highest armor for your ranged troops, so if that's important for you for skirmishing, to out-skirmish your opponent or to withstand arrow shots a little bit better, mercenary peltas can be a good choice for you. But I do happen to think the best one are the Parthian foot archers. Moving along to shock cavalry, we've got these mercenary Sarmatian lancers. These guys are the lightest of the light shock cavalry. They're not very good. They're only there to clear away enemy light infantry very quickly, so slingers, any sort of archers or other ranged units, but they're not really even good at rear charging enemy units. Next up, we've got the Eastern Cataphracts, and these guys are really good. They're a great cost, 830. For the stats they have is a really great steal, so these guys you can load up on really if you want to. They've got decent statistics as far as melee attack, weapon damage, and charge most goes, but their melee defense is pretty lacking. These guys are again shock cavalry, so they're best for a single initial drive, and then after that they're sort of going to wear down. I've already talked about the Royal Cataphracts. They're a slightly upgraded version of the Eastern Cataphracts, and the only really great thing about them by contrast is that they've got Inspire. So if you match up, say, 2 Eastern Cataphracts and then 1 Royal Cataphract in a wing, and then do the same on the other side, you're going to be really well off. Actually, one of my favorite things to do is take a wing with a Royal Cataphract, an Eastern Cataphract, and a Camel Spearman. But let's move along to our melee cavalry, starting with those Camel Spearmen. These guys ride camels, which means that they scare horses. They provide a pretty decent morale penalty to horses. So even though these guys have absolute trash for statistics and a base morale of 25, which is atrociously low, they're still useful to have sort of scooting around the outside of combat rather than actually being in it, since it will provide a morale penalty to enemy cavalry. You can sort of charge them in once everyone's dug into the melee combat to help out a little bit, but for the most part you're there for that morale debuff. Other than that, they're only really any good to throw away against a light unit, and if you're going to do that, mercenary Sarmatian Lancers are probably a little bit better. But ultimately, you can actually just take the Camel Spearmen, and if it turns out your opponent has no cavalry of his own, you can use these guys to try and hunt archers. Moving on, we've got the Median Cavalry and the Noble Blood Cavalry. These guys are practically the same. The Noble Blood Cavalry just have a tiny bit more melee attack, so if you've got the money, that extra melee attack is definitely worth it. It's only $10 extra or whatever, so do go for the Noble Blood Cavalry, but if you're short 10 or 20, Median Cavalry is still very good. So these guys are the sort of all-arounder, stuck-in type combat cavalry. They're very cost-effective, they're very powerful, they're very durable. The only thing is that they are outclassed by the ultra-heavy ones like Praetorian Guard and whatnot. Even sometimes at a 2-to-1 ratio, I've found that these guys don't necessarily power through that. But them backing up something like the Royal Cataphracts or the Eastern Cataphracts is a very good combination, so you could definitely get a charge in with an Eastern Cataphract, and then sort of swoop in with your Median Cavalry or your Noble Blood Cavalry from the sides and do very, very well in that cavalry fight. They're also pretty good against infantry as well, and they're not too expensive, so I have used them in a role where they're sort of expendable throwaway units, if necessary, to take away a lot of enemy archers. Moving on to Missile Cavalry, these guys have the most Missile Cavalry in the game. First off, we've got Horse Skirmishers. These guys are pretty much similar to everybody else in terms of Horse Skirmishers. They throw javelins. If you want to have a harder hitting one, these guys are very good. They've got 22 damage javelins that penetrate armor quite well. They're very strong in those regards. But they don't have the Parthian shot, which we're going to get into here. These mercenary Sarmatian horse. These guys have got the Parthian shot, which means that they can fire at units that are behind them. So you can actually run away with these guys, and they will continue to shoot behind them at anything that's chasing them, which is really, really good. As you can see, they've also got that 30 missile damage. If you go further up here, up to, say, these camel archers, these armored horse archers, and even the noble horse archers, they only have 25 missile damage. So I actually really like the Parthian horse archers or the mercenary Sarmatian horse archers rather than the others, just because they're a lot cheaper, but they do more damage, so they're very, very effective units. Now, the difference between the Parthian horse archers and the mercenary Sarmatians is mostly things like leadership, so you're not really getting much different from these guys, so I like to save the money and get the mercenary Sarmatian horse archers. They're very cost effective and they fit their role very well. But if you do want your guys to panic a little bit less immediately because you're charging them into, say, a lot of enemy javelin men, you might want to consider the Parthian horse archers or even the armored horse archers. As you can see, armored horse archers and noble horse archers have very good health and armor for an archer unit, and they're actually not too terrible at chasing down light infantry. Camel archers are sort of in a weird niche. They're not actually all that tough. They don't have very much morale at all, but they are on camels, which means that they can be used to skirt around the edges of a combat with a lot of other horses and be used to scare them, but they are lacking Parthian shots. So as far as being actual horse archers goes, they're far weaker. If you want camels, I prefer the camel spearmen. Moving on, these guys have the Indian war elephant. This is different from the African war elephant in that it is tougher. It is also a larger unit, so its mass is calculated as higher for its charge bonus, so it hits a little bit harder. So this is a very, very durable thing, and I actually quite like taking Indian war elephants with these guys. It barrels straight through a lot of different unit types, and it's really good against other cavalry. Anyway, that's enough about their units. Let's go look at them on the campaign map. So if we look at them, they're under the Eastern Empires. Both the Eastern Empires, which are the Parthians and Pontus, get Great Marksman, +1 experience rank for archer recruits, and Persian Trade Heritage, plus 10% wealth from all commerce buildings. So Parthia has Cavalry Masters, +1 experience rank for cavalry recruits, and this does stack with Great Marksman if you're getting horse archers. So that means that their horse archers start with 2 experience chevrons, which is really good. Next, they've got Zoroastrian Slavery Aversion, plus 25% Servile Unrest, so these guys cannot get slaves. Otherwise, they have a lot more rebellions to worry about than they would otherwise. And they've got Multiculturalism, which is minus 25% public order penalties due to presence of foreign cultures. So these guys can conquer other cultures very effectively and don't suffer the same sort of penalties that they would normally have. And if you're not taking slaves, this is a very good faction for controlling unhappiness in foreign territory. Anyway, let's hit start campaign, and I will see you on the campaign map. Okay, so here we are in Nisa, our Parthian capital, but unfortunately, as you can see, that's not actually a capital. The capital of this region is Hekatompilos, or something like that. I'm absolutely terrible with these sorts of names, which is way down here. So we do not control the fortress city in this area, and if you look at our diplomatic table, we're actually in a pretty strange place here currently. Since if we go over here to Arya, they're a satrapy of the Seleucid Empire. We can't reach these guys over here, so that doesn't matter. Bactria is way over here. We can't reach them either. Dahay, which is just to our north, is our friend, so we don't want to be attacking them, really. We're actual outright military allies with the trade agreement, so we don't want to attack them. There's Koramasiri or something like that, which is way to the north here. And another faction that doesn't like us way to the north here. And then we got Parthava, who dislikes us and is just to our south, but they're part of the massive Seleucid Empire. So we can't really attack them all that effectively, and those are all the factions we know. So either they're friendly and are fairly easy to befriend and often get trade agreements from, and even alliances from if we want to. But all the ones that dislike us are part of the Seleucid Empire, so they're very difficult to get into a war with, unless, of course, you do some weird stuff with the politics and other shenanigans like that. But you know me, that's not really what I'm all about. So we're going to go ahead and take our army here. As you can see, we've got ourselves a noble horse archer. We're actually going to go ahead and replace our noble horse archer with a... Let's go ahead and hire this guy. And we're going to replace him with the Royal Cataphracts because they're much more competent. And we're going to go ahead and declare war on these guys, and along with them, a million other people, because I don't give a damn. So as you can see, we're now at war with half of the eastern factions, if not more. And yeah, we're just gonna have to deal with that. Anyway, that's how I like to, Really? Okay, but anyway, that's how I like to start this off here. Right, I forgot they're also satrapy of the Seleucid Empire. So let's go ahead and attack them as well, because why not? So we're gonna go ahead and hire some mercenaries. March on over to our former friends here. We're going to have our spy go back behind Merv.
I assist you further.
Sabotage them away, poison their wells.
As you order, my lord.
Actually, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to, oops, not that.
With great patience comes great.
Place this guy with this guy, who's also going to be a Royal Cataphract. And then we're going to march the whole lot of them into here, Merv as well. We're not going to be able to make it this turn, but we'll be able to make it next turn, which is perfectly fine by me. And we can even potentially, sometimes I've been able to hire some mercenaries in the next turn, but I can't remember what the odds of that were. I think it was pretty strange. I'm still not sure how mercenary recruitment works. Anyway, we're also going to get attacked from the south in Susa, but, you know, just for now, we're going to have to go ahead and build these nomad camps because we don't want to have our people starve to death, which is what would happen. And we don't want to upgrade this eastern village just yet because we don't have really the resources necessary to do that. So we're going to go ahead, raise another army. This is the last army we can raise. Royal Cataphracts yet again.
At your command.
And as you can see, we can actually recruit really good units despite the crappy units that we've been getting in our army stacks for some reason. So we start off with much worse army units than we really could be otherwise starting with. These Eastern Spearmen are utter trash. These horse skirmishers are utter trash. It's just really odd that we don't get any good units in our starting armies, but we have the ability to recruit them pretty easily. So anyway, as you can see, we've got ourselves our start here, which is basically just declare war on everything. And that will work out actually pretty much fine for us. If you look at our tech tree, what I'm going to focus on with these guys is mostly going to be economy. Most of the armies around this area are similarly weak, and once you get to the sort of Hellenic factions or the Roman sort of areas, you can actually beat them mostly with horse archers if you've got enough micro, so don't worry too much about getting overrun by a more technologically advanced heavy infantry faction or nation. Anyway, that's my basic look at these guys on the campaign map. What I would recommend in terms of these guys for the overall sort of long-term strategy, I like to sort of gradually push southwards with these guys until I've gotten a secure toehold and I can force the Seleucid Empire to quit waging war on me. Once I've gotten the Seleucid Empire to sort of quit being at war with me, I can sort of focus elsewhere as necessary, but typically that's going to take up the largest amount of your time, and once you've done that, someone else is going to get ticked off at you, like Rome or the Greek city-states or Egypt. Usually Egypt, I find. So take them out as well, and then march your way across the south of or the north of Africa if you'd like to fight Carthage or whatever. Anyway, that's my look at Parthia on the campaign map. Let's head on over to the battlefield. Hey there YouTube, welcome. Here's the battle setup for the Parthia faction here. As you can see, I've got a fairly rough army setup here, based around trying to beat my opponent that I've got against me here. And I just wanted to point out that today it is foggy, which means that I'm probably going to lose because you don't really want to play as Parthia in the fog. One of the things I'm going to have to be doing here is just quickly chopping down those archers, since I don't really think they're going to help me here. Get rid of one of my noble blood cavalry. Let's get another thing of royal cataphracts here. Another thing of royal cataphracts. And another thing of royal cataphracts. So, why am I doing this? Well, because our shooting is going to mean a lot less than it would on the normal map. So I'm going to have to rely a little bit more on my heavy cavalry, which is a bit unfortunate since I do like using a more balanced army. So let's get here. We've got a Macedon faction here. Very potent in the fog. Okay, so here we are on the campaign map. As you can see, because of this thick fog, it is going to be difficult for our troops to sort of see each other, and that can be potentially problematic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my infantry with the elephants and some cavalry here, and that's going to form the basis of a part of my army here. I'm going to have my general and the royal cataphracts ready to deploy as a sort of counter-assault group or whatever, but I want to draw my opponent's cavalry into my infantry and the elephants here, and the way I'm going to draw him towards that is with my Scythian or Sarmatian horse archers. And despite the thick fog, there'll still be a relatively effective lure for my opponent to try and draw him in against me. So we're going to hotkey these guys up here as well. As you can see, I've got them sort of set up hidden along the flanks, and what this is going to let me do is sort of sweep in and hopefully destroy the companion cavalry that my Macedonian opponent almost invariably is going to have, and then reinforce very quickly with these elephants and the infantry, because I can't beat him in an infantry fight, and I can't beat him in a direct cavalry fight since he's just stronger as a faction in those direct fights. What I can do is I can outnumber his cavalry, and I can wear him down with my horse archers, since I have vastly superior shooting to him. What kind of artillery pieces are these? Are those are small Greek ballistae. This could be potentially problematic. What I'm going to do is spread my lines as thin as possible so that when these ballista start firing at me, they're not going to necessarily be able to hit very many things at once here. Now, the last thing I want is for my royal cataphracts to be getting hit by that, so I'm going to start moving my horse archers up here so that he's hitting maybe 2 of them at a time, which is as much as I'm really willing to let him hit at a time. But as you can see, he's farmed a sort of noob box around here, which is very reasonable given the fact that he's using artillery. Hopefully he won't hit too many of my horse archers here. Yeah, it looks like he's got about 4 of them. Yeah, 2 from here, 2 from here. And that's going to basically be all of that. Yeah, knocked out another one, but he's only got 15 shots with those guys, so he isn't necessarily going to kill all too many of my guys here. So just have to sort of keep calm, let him expend his ammunition against my relatively inexpensive Sarmatian horse archers here. And it looks like he's starting to mobilize cavalry against me, so I'm going to have to sort of start kiting away. But the advantage here is that he's actually got I actually got a chance to sort of shoot at his units as he's moving in here, which I'm going to be doing plenty here. Looks like that's just the sailing cavalry anyway, but it means that he's not going to necessarily do too much damage to me. But yeah, as you can see, my horse archer's not necessarily doing the best job here, and that's because he does have range over me here with those artillery pieces. Since he's repositioning his artillery piece so much, he's not actually firing with it at all. Okay, so this is a fairly micro-intensive way to play the game. Horse archers, as you would expect, always sort of are. But as you can see, we're still getting shots off against him. He's starting to take a few losses. This unit over here, still full health, unfortunately. But, you know, that's sort of the way things can go sometimes. Okay, so let's get these guys back in here. I've spread out my Royal Cataphracts as well here, since I definitely don't want them getting hit by any artillery pieces. Let's see who he's going for here. I think he's going for these guys again. Okay, so what I want to try and do sort of is lure him more towards my my elephants. Let's see if we can manage that. If he doesn't go for it, I'm going to continue wearing away at his forces here. As you can see, it's another good shot against his companion cavalry. They're still full health though, so aren't going to really be bothered too badly by that. Okay, so we're doing not bad here. Yeah, definitely not too bad. I think he's starting to run out of ammunition for his heavy artillery. Once that happens, he'll be in a lot of trouble. Oh, no, that's ungood, as it were. Okay, so let's get our elephants spread out and have them run away here. Now let's get these guys spread out as well so that they don't take too many losses against that artillery fire. As you can see, we already have some pretty bad losses because of that.
Ready! Advance at speed!
Okay, so yeah, things are getting pretty messed up here, in all honesty.
Battle ready and eager!
This companion cavalry still haven't taken any losses from the fire. It's that hit point system at work. They're a fairly tough unit to crack.
Warriors eager for blood! Riders! Advance!
Okay, so I think we might be able to charge in with our elephants here. Especially since that'll help us dodge those damn rocks. Oh dear. So unselect those guys so that we can move these guys in. And our opponent's still kind of new, boxing it up a little bit. But looks like my elephants have made it safely out of range, so he's just shooting at my sword infantry here. Now his slingers are probably doing really good work since my guys have basically got no armor. But you know, that's sort of the price you pay for choosing the cheapest of the archers as opposed to the best ones. Looks like we're getting some good shots against these Royal Peltas, but they still haven't really taken any damage, but those foot companions have, so we're good there. Okay, so what I want to do potentially is, if I get a good opportunity, I would love to charge his companion cavalry general with these elephants, and you know, that would just be really, really nice. Okay, so let's run away here. These the sailing cavalry are getting quite worn down. Oh, he really is just trying to kill elephants again. It's probably going to actually get one here. No, they're still fine, actually. But yeah, let's run away with these elephants again. They're not going to actually be too useful if he doesn't get any good cavalry engagements against me, honestly, so I'm not too worried about that. I think he's going to get one, actually, but no, looks like we're still good. The Indian war elephants are durable enough, I think, that they sort of survived that, so let's get these guys in here a little bit. Let's get this a little bit more punch impact there. That's those slingers that we're going to be able to kill since he got a little bit too close. I think he underestimated my ability to charge them with my Sarmatian horse archers. Let's turn them off of melee mode. There's our elephants. Okay, so I'm not sure if these guys are still firing. Looks like they are. Let's get these guys up here. And yeah, it's just going to be a case of continuing to fire against my opponent here until he sort of has to give up a position or he quits. Anyway, this is sort of the Parthian tactics. As you can see, they're extremely annoying to an opponent here. You only got 45 kills with that artillery piece, which is not actually that great. So if you're playing as Parthia, you do have to realize that you're going to be annoying your opponent quite a bit with your irregular tactics, and you're sort of going to be skirmishing around, you're going to be wearing down his forces. If you're fighting against Parthia, do realize that they will beat you if you attempt to turtle. Okay, that's not something you can afford to do unless you have a lot of shooting while you're doing that. That's why I actually bring those swordsmen. If my opponent takes too much shooting, which I find a lot of people do when they're fighting against Parthia, they take a lot of spears and they take a lot of shooting, is that you can, as the Parthian player, just sort of, well, charge them with your few melee units. Those 5 Parthian swordsmen are actually really good at cracking through weak hoplite units or lesser hoplite units. So anyway, that's my Parthia look. I hope you found this informative, and of course, I hope